Let me take you a few years back in time, when the Pokémon Company released an special event for Pokémon Sun and Moon, a distribution event of Solrock and Lunatone. This event was accompanied by a series of articles under the title of Pokémon Mystery Files, in which 3 characters discussed mysteries of the Pokémon world. Between the Ultra Beasts and legendary Pokémon mentioned in the article, the 2 Meteorite Pokémon got their special section. And because of this, for the last 3 years, I've been asking to myself, what are these Pokémon hiding? I think I've found the answer. Let me ask you a question. What do Solrock, Lunatone, Claydol, Jirachi, Diancie and the Tao Trio have in common? They could, all of them, have their origin in Eternatus. Yeah, for real. But you might not have noticed, because Game Freak has been lying about Solrock and Lunatone since they appeared back in Gen 3. So today, in an extremely speculative effort, we are going to see how the Meteor Pokémon can help us to predict how Game Freak is going to include the Tao Trio into the current narrative of the games. And we'll also try to explain how they could have been created by Eternatus. Okay, what do we know about Reshiram and Zekrom? As told in the Legends of Unova, they used to be a singular dragon who helped the twin heroes to create the Unova region, until a war started between them and the dragon split into 2 separate Pokémon. Reshiram, who sided with the older twin, and Zekrom, who sided with the younger one. But eventually the kings ended the conflict once they saw how the 2 Pokémon and their values were equals. But when they split, they left a remnant behind, the 3rd part of the original dragon, Kyurem, a Pokémon rumored to be an alien creature who arrived to the Pokémon world on a meteor that crashed on the giant chasm, an empty husk waiting to be influenced by either truth or ideals. After the war ended, the black and white dragons were turned into stone and placed in the Dragon Spiral Tower and the Relic Castle, while Kyurem was already hiding in its cave. How can we use this information to see where did the original dragon come from? We should try to see when it arrived to the planet. The twin heroes, alongside the dragon, created the Unova region, and seems like they were the ones to build the Dragon Spiral Tower and the Relic Castle. The last one is said to be over 2500 years old. We also have the DNA splicers, which are an item that was in possession of Drayden, whose family has been protecting the splicers for many generations. Drayden explains that the splicers can be used to fuse or separate Kyurem from one of the 2 dragons, which means its existence is related to the fragmentation of the original dragon itself. That helps us a lot, because Professor Juniper's research indicates that the splicers are of the same antiquity as the Dragon Spiral Tower. So we are clearly looking at a time of over 2500 years for the arrival of the original dragon on a meteor. But besides of having an approximate time of their arrival, we still don't know how or why they appeared to the twin heroes. The Abyssal Ruins. We find them to the west of the region, a construction built by the same people who built the tower and the castle. How do we know this? This place is a tomb, a monument for an old king, and we can find some items here. Most of them are known as relics, linking them to the Relic Castle. We'll talk about those items soon, but let's first focus on the king. Who was the king? Maybe one of the twin heroes? We'll have to see what the wall inscriptions tell us about him. Different sections of the hieroglyphs mention an ancient war and how the king rejected the idea of wars because he saw the damage they cause. This kinda sounds like what happened in the Twin Heroes legend, where the world was stopped by the kings, but only after it had already affected the region. In a section with some untranslatable symbols, we have a few sentences that seem to support the idea of this king being one of the heroes, like this one, which mentions someone who joined the king, and the symbol representing that ally looks a lot like a yin and yang symbol, one of the inspirations behind the legendary dragons. Another inscription seems to imply that the king was able to talk to Pokemon, an ability he would share with one of the new heroes of truth and ideals, N. Cinsolin, who helped us to translate the wall inscriptions, suggests that this ability could be in fact inherited, confirming in some way that N is a descendant of the king. This king was for sure one of the twin heroes, but is there something in the ruins that could help us to date the appearance of the original dragon? If you managed to reach the secluded depths of this ancient tomb, you may have found, scattered in the ruins, some of the most enigmatic archaeological pieces of the Pokemon world. Besides the puzzling presence of the Arceus plates, we have the relic items. One of them, the relic crown, a crown similar to the one worn by N. All these relic items are 3000 years old, so we can overwrite that 2500 years date. And you might have noticed this date is the same we see in the history of the Kalos War and the Galarian Darkest Day. What's the connection here? What happened in Galar 3000 years ago? At the time, a wishing star crossed the sky and caused Eternatus to wake up. Starring the Darkest Day, two youths joined the legendary wolves and fought against Eternatus to stop the disaster. These youths then became kings. Why did this happen? Because the wishing stars are actually pieces of Eternamax Eternatus, who fell down to the earth, arriving in a meteor. That sounds familiar. Those pieces continue to fall down to this day, and are what Chairman Rose is searching for, so he can use their energy to wake up the giant Pokemon once again. And let's talk about that meteor for a bit. Eternatus came to the earth 20,000 years ago, ending up buried under the Galarian surface. Around the same time, the first Claydolls were created by humans and gained life after being touched by a ray of light. Could it be the light of Eternatus? It is possible, especially because we have Claydol statues in front of the statues of the heroes who defeated Eternatus. Going back to the power of the wishing stars, the tapestry is telling us the story of how a wishing star woke up Eternatus 3000 years ago, leading to the creation of a kingdom. Only mentioned one wishing star. Apparently that was enough to trigger the Darkest Day, even if in Sword and Shield they just caused a specific Pokemon to Dynamax. But in modern times, Rose needed a big amount of wishing stars in order to bring Eternatus back from its lethargy. So that wishing star had to be a big one. Or maybe many of them fell down at the same time. What if one of those wishing stars was the meteor containing Kyurem, Reshiram, and Zekrom as the original dragon? Is there any evidence indicating this? In the Kalos region, we have another event that took place 3000 years ago, the infamous Kalos War. Now, if you are familiar with my videos, you are then also familiar with my theory about how the twin heroes are AC and his brother. And not only that, but I believe they were the Galarian kings who defeated Eternatus. I made a video with that theory, and I will mention some stuff from that today, but only what is necessary for this video. Besides of the 3000-year-old connection, what other link can be found between the regions? Just like we have a set of brothers in Galar and Unova, the same happens in Kalos. AC had a younger brother who is only mentioned in the Lysander Labs archives that also mention that AC founded the Kalos region. If they are the same as the heroes from Unova and Galar, they would have become kings in Galar and then moved to Kalos and Unova, which were founded by them. Not only that, we find some other possible connections. The Parfum Palace has statues of Zekrom and Reshiram. There is another with a knight and his Pokemon. One of them, Golurk, who was created from clay like Claydol and given life by energy like Claydol, and can be found next to the ultimate weapon and at Dragon Spiral Tower. Not to mention that the new anime makes a big deal of its presence in the Relic Castle. Even if Golurk doesn't appear in the Relic Castle in the games, who can we actually find here? The Claydol line. And Golurk was one of the Pokemon used in the Kalos War. And let me tell you, I find interesting how the Kalos War cutscene and the tapestries talking about the Darkest Day leave the human armies in the darkness. So yes, there are some common points between the regions, but let's see if we can establish a timeline. We know 3000 years ago a wishing star was seen in Galar and woke up the dormant Eternatus. Not too long after that we have the Kalos War and the first contact with the original dragon, who came in a meteor. But most of the connections we made link Unova and Kalos together and lack major points that include Galar and Eternatus in this relationship, besides the meteor stuff and the 3000 years time frame. But there's one thing that will help us to uncover how Eternatus might have created the Tao Trio and how it influenced the creation of Unova and Kalos. Between the 3000-year-old relics from the Abyssal Ruins, we find the relic statue, a figure that represents the mythical Pokemon introduced in Gen 6, Diancie. Why did they include this figure of Diancie one generation prior to its release? Let's see. Just happens to be that Diancie's origins have the key to all of this. Let's check its Pokédex entries. A sudden transformation of a carving. Its pink, glimmering body is said to be the loveliest sight in the whole world. So Diancie was originally a carving. They do look similar. They are both the jewel Pokemon and their learn sets are almost exactly the same. But how did that transformation happen? The answer is in another of its dex entries. It can instantly create many diamonds by compressing the carbon in the air between its hands. Carving is a Pokemon made of carbon. This material, when subjected to intense heat and pressure, turns into diamonds. This happens thanks to a process known as crystallization. But how did this happen to carving? Well, crystallization can be seen in places like meteor craters. If a carving was put under the heat and pressure of a meteor, it would have become a Diancie. Diancie can Mega Evolve, and the diamonds in Diancie are really similar to the crystals we see at the Star City sundial. Some NPCs mention that this sundial is believed to have come from space, and we can actually kinda confirm this. If you look down the mountainside from the Victory Road, you can see how Star City is built above what appears to be a crater. It is possible that a meteor crashed in this place and created crystals that became the sundial, and, as the Pokédex says, caused the sudden mutation of a carving. And the sundial is linked through underground connections with megastones. The sundial absorbs sunlight and transforms it into a mysterious light, which causes the megastones to shine, as stated by Professor Sycamore. The professor also mentions that the sundial is over over 3000 years old. If this sundial is linked to Mega Evolution, which is possible thanks to infinity energy, and infinity energy can be used to create wormholes, which happens thanks to the binding of time and space, which is what the energy of Eternatus does during Dynamax. So it could be that the kings of Galar, who I believe to be AC and his brother, came here because they followed one of the wishing stars from 3000 years ago to Kalos, where Diancie came into existence because of it, and then to Unova, where another wishing star created the Tao Trio. This is the only reason I can find for Diancie being in the Abyssal Ruins. And if you think about it, that's the reason why AC went to Hoenn. He visited the Draconids because every 1000 years Hoenn receives a meteor shower. Thousands of years ago, one of those meteors crashed in the Meteor Falls, home of the Draconids, and the Draconids wished to the meteor to save them from Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre, and their wish transformed Rayquaza, causing it to Mega Evolve. So the meteor was a wishing star, and that meteor shower appears every 1000 years and grants wishes, just like Jirachi, who is basically the Pokemon form of a wishing star, and during the 1000 years it sleeps, Jirachi looks like this. The Pokédex mentions that in order for Jirachi to wake up, you have to sing with a voice of purity. I'm not sure, but this sounds like Meloetta to me. And Meloetta's song is named Relic Song. Maybe that Pokémon is also linked to the Relic Castle, Diancie, AC, and Eternatus. Maybe that's why the guy from the Meloetta event in Black and White mentions that he forgot how to sing after sorrow darkened the world. Also, maybe that's why Meloetta is programmed to always appear holding a star piece, despite not being any way to find it in the wild. But there's something I mentioned about the sundial that can give more credibility to the idea of the kings moving here because of the whole sundial meteor thing. Cause someone in Anistar also mentions that there are moondials. Now here is where these guys enter the scene. Parfum Palace is an intriguing place. From the statues we mentioned earlier to the paintings in its halls, this palace has many art pieces connected to the history of Kalos. For example, the gardens, one of the biggest attractions of the palace. Even the king from 300 years ago was said to love these gardens. 3 of them are built to resemble different Pokemon, like Chandelure, Pyroar, and Solrock. Solrock feels a bit out of place here. This Pokemon and its counterpart, Lunatone, were discovered in the site of a meteor strike 40 years ago. So why would Solrock be relevant enough to be in the gardens? Well, in part because the Pokédex is lying. Solrock and Lunatone are not around 40 years old. That's possibly the date when they were rediscovered. They were some of the Pokemon who fought in the Kalos War. Where can you find them in Kalos? In the Glittering Cave. Why would there be meteor Pokemon in this cave? Well, we can find crystals in the cave, so it is possible that this place was created in a similar way to the ones from the sundial. After all, we know Solrock gets its power from sunlight. Solar energy is the source of its power, so it is strong during the daytime. When it spins, its body shines. Powerful during the day, like a sundial. And Lunatone depends on moonlight, but its power is stronger during nights of full moon. This is what happens with moondials, which only give the hour properly during nights of full moon. Solrock and Lunatone are literally sundials and moondials who came from space, and there's more. In Hoenn they can be found at the Meteor Falls, where the Draconids live, who were visited by THC and were granted a wish by a meteor. In Unova, they only appear at the giant chasm and its surroundings, where the Tao Trio fell in a meteor, and that place it's called the Giant Chasm. Eternatus is the giant Pokemon. Meanwhile, in Galar they both appear in Route 8, between the ruins of an ancient castle, possibly built by the king heroes of Galar. And who else can we find here? Golett, a Pokemon we already linked to the Kalos War and the Tao Trio. Remember that distribution event I mentioned at the beginning? It was made so people would have a Solrock and Lunatone for the special event of the Hyena Desert from Alola, where they would help an alien man to recover his memories. Interestingly, Alola has Necrozma, an alien dragon creature who creates sea crystals, and also fell in 10 Carrot Hill, where it left a crater and carving appears in that place. But I digress. Seems like Solrock and Lunatone are what bind all of these locations together, but there's more to Route 8 than this. Ignore the King's Rack you can find here. There's something else that links the place to Kings even more. In the ruins of Route 8, we find the Pixie Plate, one of the elemental plates of Arceus. This is the only plate available in the whole of Galar. Meanwhile, in Kalos we can find all of them. And in Unova we are only missing that Pixie Plate. And all of the Arceus plates of the region are in the Abyssal Ruins, where the statue of Diancie was hidden, same as the relic crown, which seems to be modeled after the crown in Session. The Abyssal Ruins are pretty close to the Giant Chasm, and remember the inscriptions of the plates. The power of defeated giants infuses this plate. 3,000 years ago, many pieces of Eternamax Eternatus fell into the earth. One of them woke up the giant Pokemon who was sleeping under Galar. Another one fell in Kalos, where it caused the sudden mutation of a carving and created a sundial. The same kind of meteor is behind the existence of Solrock and Lunatone, meteor Pokemon who are living sundials and moondials. Around the same time of the darkest day, another of the wishing stars crashed in Unova, creating a dragon-type Pokemon, who was found by the twin heroes. Those twin heroes could be AC and his brother, so they must have been following the wishing stars around the world, because they knew something similar to Eternatus could appear. Where is Game Freak going with this? I'm certain we are going to get something about Zekrom and Reshiram in the Crown Tundra, especially cause Sword and Shield gave us new dex entries for them, in which, for the first time, is mentioned their ability to read the hearts of their trainers. Expect something subtle that helps us to understand more about those kingdoms mentioned in the dex entries, and some reference to their link with Eternatus. I don't expect to be 100% correct with this video, but I want to point out what we should look for, evidence related to the Pokemon we talked about today. If we pay attention and look for hidden patterns, we will soon start solving this generations-long mystery. Get ready and grab your tinfoil hat, cause we are in for a big one.